This is KGW News at Sunrise.
In just 2 hours, the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection will hold its second hearing. Coming up this morning, what you can expect to see when you tune in.
Well, it's our top local story this morning, the weather. After an extremely wet April, followed by a very rainy May, the first half of June has brought us more of the same.
I've lived here for 13 years and I've never seen this much gloomy weather and rain at this time of year.
Yeah, the National Weather Service says PDX hasn't seen a spring this wet in 81 years. So with local rivers on the rise, we'll take a look at some of the biggest trouble spots. Also this morning.
The biggest challenge to me was finding out how we'd connect all the milk jugs. And then when we found out a good way to connect them all, it was really easy.
It's top secret. You can't hear their trick. A decades-old tradition returns in a couple weeks. We're talking about the milk carton races. Devin Haskins talked to that family as they built their boat from the bottom up. That's coming up at 5:15.
I'm telling you, that blue sky in that video, nowhere to be found over the weekend. I feel like I'm still wringing out everything. It sure was wet.
It is a wet sweater, isn't it?
A little soggy.
So, scattered showers continue today. Today will be a lot like yesterday, which didn't produce a lot of total rain, but just the fact that it keeps raining is getting old for a lot of people, I think.
The threat
right?
is constantly there.
Here's a look at the radar. Right now, there's not a whole lot up and down I-5, with the exception of up north between Battleground and Longview. We've got snow levels between 5,000 and 6,000 feet today up in the Cascades. We're starting off with a little patch of blue over downtown. Still see some of the ships parked along the waterfront there from the Rose Festival, Fleet Week, and the lights on the big Ferris wheel. 52 is the early morning number. To the bus stop we go. So not a really rainy day, but there will be a scattered shower threat at any given point with sun breaks. 60 at noon and only about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't have to tell you that is below normal for this time of the year. Back to you.
Yeah, but still a little progress from the weekend. Thank you, Rod. We start this morning in Washington, D.C. Today, the January 6th committee is holding day 2 of hearings on the Capitol insurrection. Lawmakers will focus on what sparked that deadly attack. The committee will hear from several key witnesses, including Bill Stepien, former President Trump's 2020 campaign manager. He received a subpoena claiming he supervised the process of turning the presidential race into a disinformation campaign meant to overturn the election. We will also hear today from a former Fox News political editor. The hearing this morning begins at 7 o'clock our time. NBC News and Lester Holt will pick up live coverage right after sunrise.
We'll stay in Washington, D.C. for this next story. A bipartisan group of senators has reached an agreement on a set of proposals aimed at reducing gun violence in America. There have been several deadly mass shootings across the country in the past month, including the ones in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas. This new legislation centers around red flag laws designed to keep guns away from people that are considered a risk to themselves or to others. The agreement also establishes better background checks for people between the ages of 18 and 21 and provides money for school security and mental health. Senators are pushing to vote on this bill in the next few weeks to get it to the president by the end of July.
Well, this weekend, thousands of people around the country rallied to demand more action on gun violence. And it's become part of what's now an annual March for Our Lives protest.
Here in Portland, more than 300 people showed up to march on Saturday. KGW's Alma McCarty spoke to some of those demonstrators.
Our schools, protect our kids, protect our schools, protect our kids.
Protesters of all ages marched through the streets of Portland as part of a nationwide movement. These rallies, organized by March for Our Lives, a youth-driven group first created by students who survived the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida.
I immediately wanted to join and try and lead the Portland chapter.
Athena Sue Chen said the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, especially struck a chord.
It was kids who are younger than my little brother getting shot and killed. An 18-year-old should not be able to get an assault rifle and mow down a whole bunch of little kids who are just there to learn.
some in the crowd, like Paul Kemp,
This is my brother-in-law, Steve, who was killed at the mall.
have spent years working towards meaningful action against gun violence.
I got involved in the gun violence prevention movement when my brother-in-law was killed at the Clackamas Town Center shooting in 2012. I'm a gun owner, and the things that I learned about that shooting really got me angry.
Between then and now, he said several reforms have happened on a state level, but there's much more work to be done.
Really need movement and action at the federal level. That's where I've been focusing. We've got to improve things because clearly what the country has been doing and the states have been doing isn't enough.
Enough is enough.
Demonstrators and organizers called for raising the minimum age to purchase assault weapons, for universal background checks, and for a national gun buyback program.
We have to stand up because thoughts and prayers don't change policies. We just cannot let all of these shootings become the status quo.
In Portland, Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Also in your morning headlines this morning.
Next thing you know, I hear my staff just going crazy. He pulled up over on the other end, he zoomed through, missed our windows by an inch, and just scooted in right on in there.
Wow, that video showing a suspected thief crashing into a store at the Gateway Shopping Center in Northeast Portland Friday night. Portland police say the suspect, Nigel Davis, had shoplifted from the Ross store, then tried to get away in a stolen car. Officers arrested Davis after he fled and hopped on a bus that wasn't in service. Employees were shaken up, but nobody was hurt. Davis is now in jail. A person riding an electric rentable scooter has life-threatening injuries after colliding with a car Saturday night. This happened on MLK and Yamhill around midnight. Portland police say the rider was taken to the hospital. We don't have an update on their condition. The driver of the car did stay at the scene and is cooperating with investigators. The Clark County Sheriff's Office arrested a man for burglary and arson after he robbed a home in Hazeldale and set a shed on fire. This happened Saturday on Northeast 107th. Deputies say the suspect ransacked a garage, then barricaded himself in a shed out back. When deputies got there, he set the shed on fire. They eventually convinced him to surrender and say he may have been having a mental health crisis. He's charged with burglary, arson, and criminal mischief. And those are some of your morning headlines.
I want you to take a look at this video showing all the flooding. Water is just overtaking Selwood Riverfront Park. This happened yesterday just south of Oaks Amusement Park. The National Weather Service says Portland is seeing its wettest spring in 81 years. It's not just the Willamette either. Yesterday, federal water managers announced they're increasing storage behind the John Day Dam all the way out in eastern Oregon. They're hoping to prevent flooding on the Columbia River in Vancouver. This morning, Bryant Clerkley gives us a look at some of the other trouble spots caused by all this rain.
In fact, we're not running over on that side of the river today because we heard on the news last night that it is closed. And we've had to skirt some of the area along this side of the river too because of the river being so dang high.
It's a busy weekend for recreation along the Willamette River, with runners bearing the consistent rain and the Rose Festival's popular dragon boat races returning for the first time since 2019. Portland's Parks and Recreation had to close the floating portion of the East Bank Esplanade that's popular for cyclists, runners, and walkers. The rain is not just affecting the Willamette River levels. Over at Johnson Creek in southeast Portland, the National Weather Service sent out a tweet about minor flooding. The creek is expected to reach around 11.5 feet. Officials say evacuations are not necessary until the creek reaches around 14 feet. Back on the swollen Willamette River, Guy Doherty just finished his dragon boat race.
And it was rainy the last 2 weeks, so we got ready for it. The debris is also a killer out there too, because there's massive logs floating around. It's pushing real quick because the water level's high.
On the Columbia River, water levels are rising as well, which means less clearance room for boats and faster water. This will result in more bridge lifts, which could last up to 20 minutes at a time.
I've lived here for 13 years and I've never seen this much gloomy weather and rain at this time of year. I'm ready for sunshine and heat.
All right, Rod came back from vacation this morning,
Holy
walking
cow,
in
yeah.
all this weather mess. I'll tell you two things I haven't done, though, this spring.
Yes.
Have not turned the sprinklers on yet, which is nice. That saves money. Haven't turned the air conditioner on yet, at all. Not one single time have we hit the AC. So, again, I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah, there are some benefits. I think it's correct to say that the record rain we had on Friday was kind of the tipping point that really surged our rivers upward. We've been pretty lucky. We really haven't had any real huge flooding problems in most areas, despite all the rain this spring. But I do want to talk about the Columbia River. We're looking what are we looking at right now?
Clackamas Park.
Clackamas Park. That looks wet. I'm supposed to talk about this, or are you guys supposed to talk about
No, this is a live shot. We have our
Just a live
photographer
shot.
out there exactly just kind of
look
showing
at the path
you the
all
river.
flooded up.
Thank you very much. You can tell I wasn't prepared for this live shot.
Directors.
All right, I do want to talk about the Columbia River. Here we go. Flood watch is up until early Wednesday morning. Now, up in Longview, again, this is the Columbia. Right now, 12.6. The flood stage is 13.5. Not projected to go over the flood stage, but it's projected to be right there until it starts to recede Wednesday morning. And a similar scene at the gauge in Vancouver along the Columbia, 15.9 right now. That's right there at the flood stage of 16 feet. And again, projected to be right there until the river levels start to go down. This would produce these levels, some flooding of the islands with some boat launches and kind of some sloppy spots, if you will. By the way, it does appear that the Willamette will stay several feet below flood stage in downtown Portland. But needless to say, all waterways for weeks and weeks now, I'm sure have caught your eye because they are running brisk. I mentioned Friday seemed to be the tipping point, that record 1.42 inches that fell for the date in Portland. And so far for this June, we're at 2.77. Now, the wettest June out at PDX is 4.27. That was back in 2010. And, you know, we're only about the halfway point, so we're keeping an eye on that. Here we go. April through June, the big number, 12.28, more than 6 inches above normal. The Weather Service reporting over the weekend, the wettest spring in 81 years. Believable? I think so. Here's the water year total. Now, again, the water year runs October 1 through September 30th. We're already over 40 inches. This is the first water year above normal, the first 40-inch water year since 2016-2017. That puts an end to 4 consecutive years of below normal precipitation, which is actually good news. I do want to show you Santiam Pass real quick. 31.6 degrees. They've got snow roadside and kind of slushy surface right there. A reminder that you could find some snow today over the Cascades, depending on elevation. You saw some radar showers showing up. We have showers today and tomorrow, temps in the 60s. Wednesday's our next dry day. And then Father's Day. And then back to Wednesday.
Thank you, Rodney.
All right.
He's back, baby.
He's back.
Rod, viewing audience, our next story this morning comes with a question. Got milk? Actually, for this story, the question is, got milk cartons? The Rose Festival's Milk Carton Boat Race is back this year, and there's still time to sign up. Devin Haskins caught up with a local family as they built their boat for the race. That story's coming up right after this quick break.